What's going on, folks? Here at Dyno Works, and I am back in the dyno room today with our 2024 MT09 for some long-awaited intake testing. Now, as you can see on the bike, we've reinstalled our SC Project full system. And on the intake side of the equation, we've installed the brand new DNA Stage 2 intake for these 4th generation CP3s. I stress that it's the 4th generation CP3, not the 3rd generation, because the airboxes and intakes are completely different on this bike versus, say, a 21, 22, or 23 MT09. We actually covered that significant size difference between the intakes in one of our previous videos. If you haven't seen that, just scroll back on our YouTube and check it out there. Just in case you haven't seen what that DNA Stage 2 kit actually looks like, it effectively replaces the entire airbox lid on the bike. You're going to remove this, install a new bracket to hold the ECU in place, because the stock one obviously sits right there on top of the airbox lid, and then just install this in the trash can, because once you have the DNA kit in place, you're never going to want to go back. So before I show you the performance of the DNA Stage 2 intake, let's see how this bike performed with the stock intake and just a drop-in air filter installed. It made 117.9 horsepower and 67.25 pound-feet of torque to the tire on pump gas with our ECU mapping dialed in to match the SC Project system. But just as we saw with the last generation CP3s when we were installing and testing and tuning these systems on those bikes, the gains are enormous. This is how the bike performs now. The very peak number does not change much at all. It's making 117.7 horsepower to the tire instead of 117.9 on pump gas, and it's making about 1 pound of torque more than it did previously when you're talking about peak numbers. But the gains off the bottom and through the mid-range are huge. In fact, if I highlight and zoom in here right around 6,500 RPMs, you can see that the bike is now making almost 4 pound-feet of torque more and a little more than 5 horsepower more in that area, which again is where you're normally riding the bike through the meat of the rev range. Even when you're on track out here at the very top end, you're not really losing much of anything. Nobody's going to ever notice or complain about a 0.2 horsepower loss when they're gaining 4 pound-feet of torque and 5 horsepower when they're actually riding the bike here all the way from 3,500 to about 8,000 RPMs where those gains are present. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, having ridden this thing now with that DNA Stage 2 intake in place, you absolutely feel the difference. Especially when you're coming out of a slower corner on a racetrack, you're down in that RPM range, maybe 6,000, 7,000 RPMs, and when you're coming on the throttle, the response is dramatically improved from the stock intake. Now, obviously, with those improvements down low come some additional fueling needs. The bike now flows more air, so it needs more fuel, which is why we've gone ahead and already tested this intake on 3 different exhaust systems, and we're going through the painstaking process of testing it and rebuilding ECU mapping for all the other systems we offer support for, because the fueling needs are different. And this level of R&D is just one of the several things that sets us aside from a lot of the competing tuners out there that are offering support for these new bikes. You're not going to find us just copy and pasting over the additional fuel needs from one system to the next. We're actually going through the process of reinstalling every pipe on our bike and rebuilding the mapping for this intake while it's installed. It's honestly a giant pain in the ass, but it's the right way to tune these bikes, so it's all we're ever going to do. We're also fortunate enough to have a pretty large team here at Dyno Works, so we can go ahead and get these exhaust systems swapped out relatively quickly. Again, we've already done 3 in like 36 hours. I'll have the rest of them that we've built mapping for on the bike and mapping built for them within probably the next 2 or 3 days between the bike we have here and customer bikes we have out there in the shop with other exhaust systems already installed. So if you're looking to pick up one of these DNA Stage 2 kits and get those awesome bottom and mid-range gains, look no further for your ECU flashing needs than right here at Dyno Works. You will not find higher quality custom intake and exhaust specific ECU mapping anywhere else, guaranteed. Our mail-in ECU flashing service is available for these bikes on our website, tooldynoworks.com, for $349.99, and if you have any questions whatsoever about getting your new Yamaha properly tuned and dialed in, please do not hesitate to email us at support@tooldynoworks.com. I personally answer any and all tech support questions every single day, and we are always happy to help get your bike properly tuned and dialed in.